Welcome. You're on the Fringe Show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live every Friday, 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe Show helps you to navigate the rapidly changing world and increase the odds of your success. Here we talk about technology, startups, entrepreneurs, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world that's upon us. Today, I'm talking about NFTs and why they're going to be a game changer for creators. It's a topic which is very, very close to my heart, and that's because right now I'm involved in a project that's building a new art gallery for digital artists. It's called Vernissage. But it's with a project with a little bit of a twist. It's not just an ordinary art gallery, because we're trying to create a community of digital artists. And maybe at some point in time, we will tokenize this community as well. So I've got a little bit of skin in the game. I understand how things work, although not fully, because this is such a new show, a new thing. It's a live show, so please allow Facebook to identify you or StreamYard to identify you. And please comment and ask questions as we go along. And of course, at the end, I will leave some time for you to ask questions. What are the blockchain opportunities for creators? Let's start a little bit with that first before we get into NFTs. What does blockchain enable? If you're familiar at least a little bit with the technology, you know probably that it's going to open up a new monetary system. But it's a lot more than that. Apart from this new monetary system, we also will have a new system of property rights. I firmly believe that one day we'll have all our wealth tokenized, all the global wealth will be tokenized on blockchain. And that means that IP will to become digital, protected by cryptography. In one of my last shows, I talked about Web 3.0. And let me just recap a couple of key points from there, because it will help us to understand how NFTs work and what's their significance. We're right now, some people are still saying we are in Web 2.0. Others are seeing more and more than Web 3.0 has started to take shape. I'm certainly amongst those people. But in the past or at the present, when we have Web 2.0, it's really based on data monopolies and our attention, which is being monetized. And because of that, we're having a lot of services and products which are sort of free. They're not, of course, free. We're paying for that with our data. But what we're going to see in Web 3.0 is better than free. We are going to see models, new business models, where creators are actually paid for their work. If you look, and this is a genuine business model, if you look at a company like LinkedIn, which I'm sure anybody here will be using, LinkedIn is a very content poor, and they understand that. They're trying to engage creators or people, professionals, to post something, to post good content and so on. But unfortunately, they haven't found a way of doing it. And therefore, LinkedIn, I think, is far worse in terms of content than, for example, Twitter or YouTube or even Facebook. What we'll also see in Web 3.0 is that social networks will be architectured in very new ways, and they will be operated by community, not by company. I think that's a very significant shift that we can see here. And I also talked in this episode about social tokens and DAOs. DAO stands for the decentralized autonomous organizations. Social tokens can be in all shapes and forms. That they enable the creation of new business models. They can be fan tokens centered on the creator. They can be brand-centered tokens. Even if you're a legacy brand, you can explore that opportunity. And also community tokens. And what's the big significance of the token or the cryptocurrency that's part of these projects is that it allows new incentive systems and it allows alignment of objectives of all the users on the platforms that we don't see now with Web 2.0. So everyone, like creators and of course developers for the platform and investors will come together, and they will be incentivized to make sure that the value of the token rises as the platform grows. So some of these business models, not all of them, but some of them will be based on NFTs. And in this talk, I want to cover a few points so that I can get this message across. What are NFTs? What are they? How do you think about NFT value? What constitutes value? And I'll give you a few examples of projects using NFTs in very novel way so that you can get a flavor of what's really going on. So let's start with what are NFTs? NFTs are non-fungible tokens. Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polkadot, these are fungible, what we call fungible tokens. One token is similar to another. Non-fungible tokens are unique tokens. They are typically attached to a unique asset, and that's why they're called non-fungible. In the pre-blockchain era, there was no way to ensure digital scarcity, and therefore creators could not monetize their work. But this is not what we're seeing now. With the help of blockchain, we have records that uniquely represent or may represent pieces of media, and this media can be digital. It can include art and videos and music and GIFs and games and text and memes and code and so on and so forth. So a lot of things can be represented on, or records can be represented on blockchain. With NFTs, the object of art or some sort of creation itself is typically stored on an external server as a data file, such as IPFS. IPFS is a very popular protocol and peer-to-peer network for storing and sharing data in a distributed way. So every NFT created on blockchain will be linked to that particular object, which is in most cases stored on IPFS. And so what we're actually storing on blockchain is the digital certificate of ownership to that particular piece. We can be sure that it's authentic, we can trace its provenance, and so on. So there are many benefits to creators and for collectors as well, if you wish to do so, to purchase this digital certificate. What are the use cases for NFTs? Let's talk about that as well, because this is somewhat important too. Interestingly enough, it can represent lots of assets, lots of digital and physical assets, not just digital, which is kind of interesting, but also physical assets. So what are some of the use cases for NFTs? Firstly, decentralized applications, and it can be crypto collectibles, it can be crypto games, it can be digital art, and with digital art, what helps to ensure or prove rather its provenance or authenticity and ownership as well. Certificates of all sorts, it can be a driver's license, it can be your credentials, academic degrees, any other types of educational certificate, and it can be keys or passes, identities and wills and voting rights and tickets. Any type of right can also, or access can also be on NFT, so to speak, tokenized. You can do it with loyalty programs and copyright and supply chain tracking, medical data, software licenses, and warranties. And finally, not really finally, but a couple of points here as well. Unique investments tied to physical object can be also monetized and tokenized that well. In that manner, for example, it can be a piece of real estate or other real world assets. And finally, and that's very, very interesting, you can tokenize not just with the help of NFTs, not just one kind of one solid piece, one piece, but you can have what we call fractionalized ownership. And what fractionalized ownership is you can own a piece of something, but not necessarily a whole thing. This is possible with NFTs. Say here in Dubai, we have apartments or villas that are quite expensive, and it's out of reach for many people. What you can do as a real estate agent, and I've seen this happening already, you can fractionalize that particular piece of real estate and distribute your tokens to the public, so that you ordinary users, ordinary people can have a piece of property, not necessarily the whole property. The same goes for art. You can fractionalize art. If you say, well, theoretically speaking, you can fractionalize a masterpiece like Mona Lisa. It's not going to happen, I think, but there are many other pieces of art that have already been fractionalized in that way. So you own a piece of it, you don't own the whole thing. Let's talk a little bit about what's the benefit of NFTs for creators. Why the better? Why there's such a big thing? And that's because they remove intermediaries that charge very high fees. For example, art galleries, a topic which is very close to my heart, they charge a lot of money in transaction fees, sometimes up to 50%, which is really, really high. Platforms, digital platforms, are also intermediaries, you can say them, that's true, but they are very much restricted in what they can charge. They can also enable better pricing structures, because we can all of a sudden we have several pricing tiers with the help of NFTs. And when users become owners, user acquisition costs can go really nearly to zero. And that's what we've seen happening with an NBA Top Shot, which is a collectible. Their revenue in one of the months went up to $200 million without single penny spent on marketing. It was all peer-to-peer marketing and all around kind of viral marketing. It's definitely a community story. What is not possible, or possible to a very limited degree with art in particular, are the so-called secondary sales. So you can sell a piece of art once, but you can't do it twice and third time and fourth time, so that the creator himself or herself gets a portion of that. That's really not being done, but you can do it with NFTs. And I think that in future we'll see each and every community with its own microeconomy almost. And it can be a combination of tokens. Some of them can be fungible, some of them non-fungible, and you can own and trade and collect all these tokens. Let me walk you through a few examples. One of the early examples of NFTs, and NFTs are very young as a technology, probably they started sometime around 2016, 2017. One of the earliest use cases, so to speak, was CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties, as the name suggests, it was about cats and kitties. It was an Ethereum-based collection game where users could buy and breed and exchange digital cats with unique traits randomly generated by smart contracts. So these cats had cattributes, very, very different cattributes for each and every cat. The color, the types of eyes, the whiskers, all of that could differ. If cats mate, then these cattributes can be passed on to offspring. So that was kind of the gist of the game. There was a lot of speculative hype around it. There was a very viral story at some point in time. It completely clogged the Ethereum network, and one of the kitties sold for a record amount of $100,000. The market kind of lost interest after that. It suffered. Well, it was volatile, still is volatile. We don't see this type of prices with CryptoKitties. And while it's very, very easy to dismiss that as some kind of toy or a meaningless fad, we need to remember that all innovations start as toys, sometimes, very often, in fact. And what CryptoKitties gave to us is the so-called ERC 721 standard. It's a standard specifically for NFT tokens developed on Ethereum by Dapper Labs in 2017. So while it may seem kind of almost silly, but it was a major innovation and a major breakthrough. And now a lot of projects that are based on Ethereum, based on using NFTs. All of these projects are using, most of them are using ERC 721 as a token standard, because clever people understood straight away, this is something really interesting here. We couldn't do that before, which was CryptoKitties. Another example is SuperRare. It's an art gallery, and they talk very openly about benefits for artists if you go through a digital art gallery. Artists are compensated more fairly. It's no longer 50% of transaction fees. The fees are very modest, up to 15%. And on secondary sales, the artist will receive on each and every secondary and third and fourth sale, they will receive at least 10% of the value of the piece sold in perpetuity, which I think is a very, very cool idea. Collectors will also benefit from this type of art, because art, all of a sudden, art is not fake. In the UK, which is one of the largest markets for traditional art, they estimate that around 20% of all art can be fake. You can rest assured that all the provenance and history, all of that can be traced on blockchain. It's a 24/7 connected marketplace. It never stops. There are no holidays. There are no weekends or weekdays. All of that is throughout the 24/7. Always on. And finally, data transparency is a big issue in traditional art. In traditional marketplaces, it's very hard to pull together historical sales data. You almost need to go one by one. It's a very time-consuming process. Here, with NFTs, you can do it straight away. It's actually very, very easy. Another example, so we had this art gallery example. Another example is coming from gaming. Back in around, I think it was 2017, 2018, one of our friends started a project which was called CryptoKitties. I went through their white paper. It was a very popular project that won several awards, and it didn't really go anywhere. Daniela, if you're listening to me, or one day you're listening to me, that's obviously your example. But what was clear back then to the founder of the project, to my friend Daniele, that it was just too early for the innovation to mature, for people to understand what's the value, what's going on. Now it's not, it's time. And one of the examples is Axie Infinity. It's a game which has around 350,000 active users daily. It's a new type of game where you can, which is partially owned and partially operated by its players. So instead of, it's more like founders and employees, those people who are playing the game. It's not users, it's Ethereum based as well. It's a kind of a trading and battling game that allows, like normal game, players to collect, breed and raise and battle and trade what they call Axies. Axies are little creatures, digitized as their own NFTs. What is interesting about this platform is that they have, about this game, is that they have two types of tokens. One of the token is fungible token, which trades on exchanges. You can go and buy it. But also they have a non-fungible token, and that's where the land and in-game items and all sorts of bundles can be sold with the help of NFTs. These particular pieces are NFTs. Now, what is also very interesting about Axie Infinity is that it allows players to earn income. It's not only you can spend your money on buying various items, but you can also earn it. And it's incredibly popular in Asia, and particularly in the Philippines, because people can earn several times more per day than they're doing in their regular jobs. That's possible. Another example is from an artist. In 2007, Mike Winkelmann, or his pseudonym, artistic pseudonym is Beeple, he's a digital artist. He posted new work of art online for the first time, and he continued to do that for almost 14 years. Every day he produced a piece of art that would absolutely no holidays, no weekends. Every day he produced a piece of art, and all these pieces of art, and to be more precise, 5,000 of them, became the building blocks of a unique collage in the history, most unique collage in the history of digital arts. It was minted exclusively for Christie, and the buyer paid almost $70 million for this work of art. Called Everydays, the first 5,000 days that reflect the digital journey of a digital artist into this space. It was the very first time that a major auction house offered a piece of digital artwork, and it was made possible because of the NFT attached to that particular piece of digital art. Now, a couple of examples from music. If you're a musician, probably you need to be paying attention to that as well. Kings of Leon is probably one of the first groups or bands that decided to NFT their creation, their album, which is called You See Yourself. And that was done with the help of a platform called Yellow Heart. So that's a blockchain company that helped them to create, or as I call it, mint NFT. If you know a little bit about music and the music industry, you will probably know that one of the biggest problems there is digital piracy and low streaming royalties as well. The rates are really very low. And plus, when COVID hit, many of the performing artists couldn't go on tour anymore. And this is why the NFT idea for musicians is very, very clever. And what is also very interesting, it's not just for creators that it creates opportunities, but all of a sudden, digital music becomes an investment as well. What they did was different from maybe what other artists did. They created a limited edition of NFTs. They sold, I think, something like 2 million worth through this blockchain company. But as part of the project, what they also have is what they called NFT Yourself. And this is what offers more exclusive items and special rights for their fans, such as, for example, several front seats to one show of absolutely every single Kings of Leon tour for life. So until the end, you will be with them if you want to, until they tour. Let me stop here for a second and see who is here. Hello, Larissa. Great. No, that's okay. It will be recorded. I'm very happy to see you here from Australia. So that's Kings of Leon. Another interesting example coming from music is Songcamp, which is a music collective. What they did is also very interesting and unusual. They decided to break away from the traditional music industry. They published sort of a manifesto that I thought was very profound, and they've come up with a few insights, and I would like to read a couple of sentences from this almost like manifesto. They were describing the problems with the current music industry. The current music industry models condition us to believe certain untruths, that we must amass millions upon millions of streams a month to earn a decent living, that we must do one thing and build one brand identity and not stray away from that, and that we must spend an exorbitant amount of time and money finding our audiences by paying for data that is siloed off by opaque intermediaries, data that is rightfully ours. They divorce themselves from the traditional music industry, and this is what they're saying. We need not accrue millions of streams. We need not build one and only one version of ourselves, because it limits creators by definition. Why should they be doing only one type of art? And we sure as hell do not need to commoditize our music and let it sit frozen. And so they go on and on. And what they're also saying, which is quite interesting, is what we must do now is experiment. Songcamp is a place to run these experiments. And they're absolutely spot on here, because it is very experimental. It's also very, very new. What they did is put together several teams of musicians, a team of visual artists, and a team of project operatives, of project managers. They set themselves a time. In 2 weeks, they need to produce 3 songs, that also some design to cover artwork and that goes with these songs, and also build and fund the release of this song. So marketing and project management was also part of it. It's from what I understand, they're doing these projects all over and over again for different musicians. So bye-bye traditional intermediaries. Before we kind of wrap it up, I want to talk a little bit about the value of NFTs. How do you judge how important, how rather valuable these NFTs are? Because NFTs, particularly in music and in art, they are a new investment asset class. And that's a very important point. So if you're an investor, or want to become an investor, then probably you would want to pay attention to that. Surely, just like in traditional art, creator with its brand, with his brand and reputation, that's a very important part of it. The artwork itself and the visual and aesthetic aspect could be part of this value, but also the value accruing to things like provenance and scarcity and authenticity. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with, and it's just the fact that some time ago, Jack Dorsey sold his very first tweet as NFT for almost $3 million, which he donated to charity. If I want to tokenize a tweet, well, convert it into an NFT, that won't be very valuable. But Jack Dorsey's is, because it is authentic. It is, and it's the very first tweet in the history of Twitter. So it has some historical significance. Cultural value and significance, cultural significance can also be part of value of NFTs. And for collector, if you're a collector, then you can have bragging rights for owning this desirable collectible. This is what young people are doing. They are bragging about their purchases of NFTs. Plus, you, as a person, you can derive enjoyment from this investment, because you can talk about it with groups of peers and people who are like-minded. But the most important part, and this is, I don't think we see it in traditional art that much, is that the value is driven by community, because community gives the NFT legitimacy, and it's also kind of a manifestation of a social contract, social consensus on the value of art. If you're a collector, then you should be paying attention, I think, to how big the community is, and is it active? Is it absolutely in love with the creator or with the particular creations, be it songs or music or art? And finally, there is also an element of speculative value and kind of fashion and fads that we also need to recognize as well. And let me conclude this with a couple of key insights for creators. Why do I think if you're a creator, you need to be paying attention to that? Web 3.0 will allow, or already allows, entirely new, non-exploitative and non-extractive business models for creators. And they're very different from what we've seen in Web 2.0. NFTs are the fundamental building blocks of this new future because they're solving the issue of digital scarcity, and they're allowing new forms of monetization for creators. On top of that, with the help of blockchain, we are having a new system of property rights. Again, nothing of that kind was available to us before. And probably one of my kind of calls out there, I'm reaching out to those of you who are creators. It's still very, very early, so experiment. It's okay to fail, but build a community. And if you're an investor or fan out there, then please support these artists in non-traditional ways. This is my message for today, and I really enjoyed talking about it because, as I mentioned several times already, it's a topic which is very close to my heart. I love art. You can probably see I've got quite a few paintings up here. I love music. This is that's a picture of Chopin, one of my favorite composers. So please support these artists. It's a new way of doing it. Let me see the comments. Yes. Yeah, correct. It's all about community and trust and interest in this type of art. Yes. Okay, wonderful. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for allowing me to share some of my interests and something that's I hold very, very dear. And I'll see you as usual next time, next Friday, 2 p.m. Dubai time. Once again, thank you for joining me.